From Mary Shelley's Frankenstein to the Lucas and Roddenberry franchises, the Martian Chronicles, and beyond, science fiction is undeniably a part of our culture. But what exactly is science fiction? And how do you write a science fiction novel? This series will attempt to answer those questions.
Okay, welcome back, everybody. We've got another episode with Kate and Adam, and this is live science fiction. So we're here continuing down our path to build something epic and phenomenal. We've got Adam and Kate in studio, and today we're going to talk about where Adam is at. He's had some wins in terms of being able to confront that blank sheet of paper. He has been able to bust through, the threshold of coming off of a holiday season, and I'm kind of proud of him. I'm kind of proud of him for being able to kind of push through that and get that out. And so Adam, why don't you start off by telling us a bit about how you feel being able to, get several paragraphs done.
Yeah, well, it's called being stuck on an airplane for 6 hours. But, that helps. I think the other thing is routine, right? We're all busy, so it's not necessarily about time, it's about priority. So trying to fit in, whether it's the same time every week or same whatever, I find this stuff is fun. It's energizing. So trying to find those energizing pieces, those moments to try and squeeze it into your life, however that works. So hopefully we're on a bit of a roll. I was stuck for a while, kind of at the beginning, I'm trying to build a crescendo for this poor character having just a really intense, terrible day where his life falls apart. So I'm just like piling on a crazy day. And I'm trying to really, hopefully, make the reader really feel the pressure building. And that was my intent anyway. So it was kind of fun to write like that, like the pace of the writing. Like at first it was like slower and blah, blah, blah. And then I kind of picked it up and was coming in. Anyway, so all these things we talk about all the time. Hard to have fun with.
Yeah, I want to talk about being stuck in an airport. You were with the family and is partially with the part of the family in Maui, and that was a change of scenery. And I think you're onto something. I want to talk about it for a little bit. If I've had this experience where I have to take my car in to get fixed, and I'm stuck in a dealership. I've got my laptop. I have enough foresight to be able to say, well, I'll put the laptop in the backpack and I'll sit there, and heck, I'll just sit there and wait 4 hours, whatever. I'll just sit there and, I'll be aware of what's going on in the business, but, I've been able to, chunk that aside, and I kind of force myself to sit there and, it's interesting what the output comes, like how the output starts to then, I take shape. So I can say that I've had a similar experience where I don't have all of the luxuries of the office and, that familiar environment. I'm there with a laptop and I don't have all of the other distractions. And I think the pathway to a term that Kate was bringing up the other day was the flow state. It was like, I just have my headphones on, I've got the laptop, I'm there, and I just end up writing. And I go, wow, I actually produced a lot. And I think that's kind of what you're talking about. Like you're there in the airport or you're there on the plane and you just have, your thoughts, a laptop, a keyboard, and, hours to just do something. Is that is that how you describe it?
Well, the funny thing is, I was like, all right, I'll just write for like 6 hours or 4 hours. I'll put in a big chunk of time. But what I found was I write, and sometimes it was like 15 minutes, and then I just know when to stop. I'd reach a point where it's like the thought was complete, or I wasn't quite clear on what was next, and I was like, I have to stop. I can't go forward. It's not coming. The tap shut off. So then I'm going to stop. not for a bit, talk to my daughter, whatever, and then I kind of like open it again and go, yeah, oh, and there you go, and then boom, another hour, and then so it was like kind of weird. I had to try not to force it. I feel like that would just frustrate me if I was like trying to like force it. It was kind of like had to listen. The universe was abiding, and then I had some ideas to write down. Right. I think editing might be easier because then it's like there and you can read through it and edit and change and whatever. But like the blank page, as you say, it's a monster.
Kate's chomping on a bit there. She wants to say something. I have something to say next, but if Kate,
go for it. My mind's down a rabbit hole. I'll tell you later.
Okay, so I have the viewers might think that that your show has a sponsor, but I want to say that what I'm going to actually talk about, they're not a sponsor. Okay, so I'm just making that clear. There's no financial arrangement or anything like this, but basically, have you guys heard of Masterclass?
Yes.
Yeah,
right?
I see ads for it sometimes.
Okay.
Yeah.
So what I'm going to do is I'm going to send you a link. I don't know if it's something where you get free previews or you can watch something. I think that's what it is. Okay. So I want to send you guys something. And I had a good experience watching. I have a subscription. My son came to me and he said, we in our family, we do a lot of cooking and, various different things. So, there's like really high profile stars that are in Masterclass, right? Both business and authors and cooks and all, politicians and stuff like that, right? So I know it's hard to find the time, right? But there's the one episode or the one series that I watched is with Neil Gaiman, Gaimen or Man.
Mm-hmm.
And I wasn't really familiar with his work as an author, other than the fact that he wrote a children's book that scared the crap out of my oldest son. Okay, and so the story was Caroline, right? This animated series called Caroline, and
that's creepy.
It is creepy, right? And so he's really interesting. He's written things in a perspective of an 11-year-old child, as this talks about. He's a very talented writer. And so in the 11 or so episodes that he goes through in this masterclass, there's enough tidbits for you guys to watch this and say, wow, right? Like, and I was telling Adam before we jumped into the show, I said, one of the examples where he gets you to challenge the status quo and the norm, which I know this is right up your guys' alley, is the rule of show, don't tell. He doesn't follow that. And so I think it would be really interesting to find out, he says, there's books where it absolutely makes more sense to just explain, just explain what you want the reader to understand, right? And so it ends up being something like, there are no rules, but I think one of the takeaways is that you need to know what the rules are before you can break the rules.
I like that. Right?
Not just break the rules. Don't do it unconsciously.
Yeah, it doesn't count if you did it by accident, right?
That's right. Another really, really good takeaway as you guys, start to get, I guess, over the hump of trying to, get to the, to the end of the novel. And I would say we're probably at the, I want you guys to think of a percentage in your head right now. Okay. I'm going to tell you what I think it is, but what is your number percentage wise of completion? Okay. Word count, not revisions and second revisions. What number are you thinking of in terms of where you're at in terms of, the full written first draft? Okay. So tell me when you have that number, and then I'll tell you where I think you guys are at.
Okay. I'm curious what things.
I think that we are 10% done.
Okay.
That's what
Maybe
I said. There you go.
Interesting, because I was double that.
Okay, 20.
Yeah,
And
probably 10.
Probably, right? But I think what happens in terms of a final word count, right, is that it's going to be much bigger, and the editing process cuts and cuts and cuts and cuts and cuts and cuts. Not saying that it's going to be like a novella or like a small form of a novel, but what will happen in the editorial process is that may be all you need to develop and show, and and so anyways, interesting that the number that came in my head was 20%. So because I think you guys have done a lot. I think there's a lot in there.
I learned a lot. This whole experience just taught me a lot about this whole process. Not only like how to fit it into your life, but how to do it, I don't know. It's been a lot of fun. We spent the first 6 months just like crafting the story, and then like actually writing, line by line. That's been something more recent, right? So, yeah, I don't know. I'm enjoying it.
So to summarize, I'm going to send you guys a link. I think it's like a free gift sort of thing, where
Thank you.
It's a trial subscription. And like I said, we're not sponsored by Mastercraft or Masterclass. It would be nice if we were. That would be pretty cool,
right?
But we're not. But if you guys can get in there and watch that series, they have a very interesting app too. So it is the kind of thing that if you have an Audible sort of thing, you can just put the headphones on and kind of just listen to it. That might be the thing, as opposed to sitting and watching an hour of a video, right? I find that sometimes I just don't have the bandwidth or the time or the ability to, to kind of do that. Mm-hmm. So if you find yourself wanting to sit down and write, and you're like, okay, maybe that's kind of a default if the words don't just start flowing. He's an amazing storyteller. And what I found is that the one rule that resonates with what he's talking about is that the goal is to get the reader to turn the page. That's it. That's all you want to do, is you want to get that reader to turn to the next page again and again and again. And I even find myself on the novel that I have at a point where I'm stuck on a few things, right? I've pretty much written the book, but there's a few things that I'm really stuck on, and I'm not in a stage of a second edit. Okay. But it might require some serious rewriting. Again, it comes down to what, the intention of the book is that you guys are writing, which I know, there's different intentions for everybody. But the piece of advice that I thought really interesting, and these are the kind of nuggets that he'll give you, is that when you take it to somebody and you give it to somebody and they say something like, it's not quite there yet, or, there's something missing, right? You take that advice and you go, okay, not an argument. You take the advice and they're right almost every time. Where they're wrong is when they say, you need to do this. They're always wrong.
Interesting.
Right? So, but if you take it to somebody and they say, it's just not quite there, they're almost always right. But this becomes part of us, right? Like when we're writing, it's like, and it's hard. But if it doesn't, grab people and keep them turning that page, that's really, what it comes down to, right?
My favorite feeling after I read a good book, it's my worst feeling probably after reading a book, is I'm angry that it's over. And there is for the next few days, I actually feel like there's something missing out of my life because I'm no longer in the journey. And books like that get me, even if like it's a good TV episode, it gets me because you get so invested in it and you're like, okay, but I want to still be in that world. Like I'm not in that world. I miss that world. I want to be in there. And that's what makes me read books over and over and over again. It's just that experience of being in that world.
Adam, do you have a book that resonated with you like that?
When I was 10, I got from the library a book. It was like that thick, but it was like the Lord of the Rings trilogy all in one like epic volume. And I started reading it, and like I don't think my parents saw me for like 5 days because I just couldn't. I just lived in there. Had to know, right? And I think that is a great example of a case where like the world building is so rich, and like the moving parts and the characters and the symbolism and all that is just, you can read it as a 10-year-old, you could read it as an adult, and it's just the experience is incredible. So yeah, absolutely, I love that.
Well, they say you don't choose good books; they choose you.
There you go.
Right? Like you have no. Isn't it kind of like true love too? Right? Like once it grabs you, it's like I'm helpless to this force. I mean, I may be a little bit melodramatic, but I'm a romantic at heart. So
I can see that about you. Yeah,
right?
I can see that about you.
It's funny. Like I love different worlds. I love the fantasy, science fiction, thinking about the future, an entirely different world with different rules. Like I love disappearing into a different place. It's different from the one we live in. But I have a friend that I used to work with who reads a lot, and his point of view he's like, this world that I live in is complicated enough as it is. Why would I want to visit another one? He hated that stuff. He was the exact opposite of me. He liked to read, fictional story about, the time and the place that we live in. And
I can't stand that because this world is complicated enough. I want to escape and just not like go through the issues, but not be so emotionally invested. Like reading an autobiography where there's like, where there's trauma gets me because it's so real. Like I read The Stone Frigate the other day, which is about the first female cadet in the Canadian military who went through, and hearing the stuff that she lived in her life, like it's gut wrenching. It makes me want to, be sick in some points of it, and it's so frustrating, and I get so emotional, and it's like it's so real that it hurts. Do you know what I mean? Whereas in sci-fi world, you're emotionally invested, but it doesn't hurt. It doesn't cut as deep. And so for me, it's a journey, but it's not so raw. I don't know. Does that make sense?
A safer journey. Yeah.
I feel safer.
Right.
I feel safer because I don't have to look this reality in the face and think this is our world.
Mm-hmm.
I think there's a real value in that. I one of the things like I don't know if it's a righteous sort of thing, but I don't, for a long time, I didn't have a TV in my house. And then, I would say, what, with my boys that come over on weekends or now we're a bit further apart, so it doesn't quite happen that way. But there was the idea when I kind of purged that sort of thing out of our life. It meant that there was no more just turning the TV on and passively just watching, flickering images and watching silly things. And I think maybe I went a little bit extreme on it because it was completely out. So much so that when family members visited me, and it's great, this is recording because they all know this about me anyways. but they're like, what are we going to do? There's no TV. And I go, what, and it was like this big.
I'm not going to Dan's house. He's lame.
Yeah. Like what's there's nothing to do except for sit there and look at each other or talk or, and then I'm being, facetious and stuff. But my, what happened in COVID situation was that, we relied on this, technology of, Xbox and, with teenagers and stuff. So I was, back into that world. And one thing in retrospect that I miss is sometimes I like a good Marvel movie. Or I like a bit, I just, because I come out of it and I feel like, like this kind of thing, right? And just this weekend, I watched Man of Steel. It was the most recent Superman movie, right? And like I get like teary eyed. Like Wells, I don't, I'm not sobbing, but he's sitting there and he's discovering his power, and his fist is pushing into the ground and it's starting to shake, and he's just about to take off, and I'm like, oh yeah, right. Like this is great. This is a hero, right? This is amazing, and it's and we know it's so so much of an ideal and so sensationalized, and DC to the max and Superman and over the top and all this kind of stuff, but it's that like escapism that it's like, all right, because tomorrow I've got Monday morning and all the stuff that it's just nice to like exit and then come back in. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Oh yeah. You're talking to sci-fi freaks, man. Like,
yeah.
Of course we know.
Your favorite characters, whether it's a movie or a novel, I think, are ones where you see reflections of yourself, right? Like we look to Superman, for example, right? Superman's deciding what kind of person he wants to be. He has all the power in the world. He can do whatever he wants, right? He could destroy nations. He could conquer the world, or he could help people, or he could try and be a better person, or try and be a good man, right? And we watch him struggle with that on this like epic, grandiose scale. But we see reflections of our day to day, like busy, exhausted kids, teenagers, whatever, just trying to be a happy, good person, right? It's the same struggle. And I think whether we actually acknowledge that consciously or not, I think the movies we like the most individually, like you have your favorite movie or story and I've got mine, are the ones where we see the most of ourselves looking back.
Mm. One of the most recent shows on Netflix that did that for me, and even more so my wife, was the Queen's Gambit, and it was a mini series.
I watched it.
My wife watched it.
Did it pull you in? Did it grab?
Yeah.
Were you disappointed when it was done? You're like, I don't have anything to watch now.
A little bit, but I was really just annoyed with her. Like,
oh, okay. Like
she made choices. She worked so hard and then made stupid choices that got in her own way. Like, I was just like, why would you do that? It's the big game tomorrow. Like, why are you going out drinking? Come on, man.
So the mother comes into the equation, right? That's so cool. Yeah.
Right. So like I was frustrated, and I think I get really frustrated with shows where it's self-destruction.
Yeah, me too. I can't watch it.
It bothers me.
Mad.
Like if you're I don't know whether it's because I'm the outside person looking in that I can see it. Maybe I do self-destruction and I just don't see it because it's in my own life. But it just drives me insane.
Yeah, it's hard enough to get ahead that you want to sequentially at least try to do the right things rather than I guess self-sabotage constantly, right?
But there's people in this world that self-sabotage. Like people do this. It drives me insane.
And I think that's the hook for a character like that, right? That you want to see them succeed, and they finally get the job they want, and then they decide not to show up and they get fired, and you're just like, fucking hell, really? Or they finally have that opportunity to meet the love of their life, and then they chicken out at the last second. They're just like constantly leading you on. This person is finally going to make the right decision that will, propel them forward into success and everything they ever wanted, and they're this close, and they never, ever, ever able to break that threshold. It's maddening,
Yeah. Yeah, I've heard those ones. I think it was in Good Will Hunting where the one character he found his life partner, and he left all else to go and do that. And imagine your life without that person that cliche completes you. It's just like everything changes. Everything, even about yourself, changes. And I think it's hard to imagine, you could look at it this way. Someone might say, well, I don't really resonate like that with a partner. But I mean, look at your lives with who you become, and this, with children, for example, like, they change you in so many good ways. I guess maybe, I don't know, bad ways, but they change you in so many good ways. And I remember when my first son was born, and then we had our second son that was coming along. I literally had the thought, how can I actually, I don't think I have any love them. I mean, not to, of course I would love them, right? But I thought, I didn't even know that there was room in my being to love another baby as much as I loved, the first one. And then sure enough, it happens. But if you cannot say that it doesn't change you.
So, it's true. But here's a thought. For love being so infinite, we're pretty damn stingy with it, aren't we?
Yeah.
Interesting.
I want to share. So I don't know why I'm getting into the depths of this sort of thing, but I think this is a natural conversation. So I want to share with you guys that I was adopted, right? So I never knew my birth mother until I was 22.
Oh no, I didn't know that.
Yeah, and so I've had time. I've thought sometimes. Imagine listening to your child for the first time, right? It could be an 8-year-old, it could be a 15-year-old, it could be someone as a full-grown adult. But think for a minute when sometimes people are around you all the time and you think, what if this was the first time I was hearing their voice and I knew that was my child? Because sometimes there's like, we kind of get caught up in the, in the day-to-day but I mean, imagine hearing that for the first time. Maybe a daughter's complaining about something or, and it's kind of like, but I thought, imagine parachuting in and hearing that voice for the first time. And that's my daughter. That's my son. And going, holy shit, that's my mom. That's my dad. That's the first time I've ever been able to hear it. I don't know. I do that mental trick every once in a while. I think,
that's really interesting because, as I went on vacation to Maui over Christmas, and then of course we got sick, so we couldn't come home. So we had 2 weeks where family was separated, and I was stuck there with my one daughter. But honestly, after the 2 weeks, like, my son, he's 3. He'll get up at like 5:30 and come into the room and just like, roar like a dinosaur or something, right? And that is exhausting, and it just kind of, you don't even think about it, but like all I wanted in the world as I was stuck there and couldn't see him and the time change made it difficult to FaceTime and all that was like, all I wanted in the world was his little face at 5:30 in the morning roaring like a dinosaur. That's all I wanted, or my other daughters, similar story, or my dog or whatever, right? Or my wife waking up with her hair sticking up all over, right? Like, that's all I wanted. So it was really kind of cool, forced perspective, I would say.
Yeah. I mean, and life is all about these small little snapshots, right? And that there's a finite number of them as we progress. And it's like, what if that was the only memory you had of your wife, your daughter, your husband, your son, your grandma, and it's like, holy shit. If I like,
well, I think that's the beauty of storytelling, right? If you can tell a story that like punches that home, then you won, in my mind. Whether it's short or long or whatever, they're the best stories, the best shows, or they take you on this journey and then you have that epiphany at the end with the character. You're just like,
speaking of stories, can we hear some of what Adam wrote?
Oh yeah, that's why we were here today, right?
Yeah.
But you know what? And here's the thing: he wrote quite a bit, so we might even be able to extend that into the next episode too. I think it was such a nice conversation. I hope you guys are enjoying it too. But I know I
love it. But I'm super curious to hear because I haven't even heard it yet. This is my first. I get the same as you did.
Have you Well, Dan, you had a chance to read it. Is there a particular part that?
Yeah, let's go to that first top section, the first highlighted section. I don't have it in front of me, but there's you've highlighted them and stuff. So can we go to the first highlighted section and maybe read that one?
All right. Let me see. Let me bring it up here. I mean, we've read we've read the scene, the dream scene at the beginning. We've kind of gone through that in a previous episode. And then and we've kind of gone through wakes up and kind of gets ready for work and all this kind of stuff. Chapter 2. Right, this is a bunch. Wow, now I look at it.
And one thing you don't advertise or you don't think about in terms of completion is the structure that you have with all the chapters and the framework there, and that's that's to have that framework is also contributes to that percentage too, right?
Yeah, it really helped. We kind of outlined like parts of this journey, like, hey, these are the characters, these are their names, this is what we think might happen here. So when I kind of got there, I was like, oh, right. Okay, let me see here. Okay, here's a interesting part. So what's happened is this person he's kind of in his virtual world and gets flagged for litigation. He attends the litigation, but while he's in there, he's kind of cut off from like messages and stuff. It's like a lockbox. Then he comes back out, and then it's just chaos. And this is where I really tried to like apply the pressure to essentially break this person. Okay, so as usual, returning from a lockbox is hectic. Notifications immediately light up my field of view, direction acquired, attendance requested. A total of 36 high priority requests were related in some fashion or another. Wait, how has 6 hours passed? I know litigation is a time code, but I just got here. A health warning flashes in the corner, a steady warning light insisting I'm late for my sleep cycle. Ignore. What is happening? When answers don't seem to come, I simply return to my notifications. A quick reply here, a video instruction there. I'm only half engaged, the other half of me is really freaked out. Message from Peyton. Peyton, my on and off again romantic partner. This brings a fleeting moment of calm. Better check that. I'm about to engage when a new pet message pops up. As innocuous as the others, except for the sender information. Population control. There are only two reasons why population control would contact somebody. First is that you have applied to have a child and you're being accepted or rejected. The second is much worse. You have been chosen to be a parent. One child was more than enough. I'm a distant enough parent as it is, so I certainly have not applied. This means that it's the second one. My blood pressure jumps through the roof. A multitude of health warnings blink on and off, becoming more insistent. I can't even think straight to open and acknowledge this message. The world suddenly becomes too much. I can't bear it. Frantically, I turn this way, then that way. I need to disengage. I can't. What is happening? Am I having a panic attack? I'm about to engage when the lights of the flow shift. I metaphorically blink, but I can't seem to clear it. It slowly accelerates until my field of view is filled with streaked lines, as if my brain can't seem to focus on a single point of information. I feel the flow collapsing around me, and I suddenly feel very small. Then the chime of an incoming live event, the virtual equivalent of a doorbell. Except this particular individual has override protocols, meaning I don't answer the door, he just kicks it down. Hey, Clint, how are you? The chairman's voice pierces my momentary cowering. And then he gets shit from his boss, essentially, as he's having his breakdown.
That's so funny.
Oh my God. This is amazing.
Yeah, that's good. I like that too. Do you know that? So he's like getting scared shitless, right? Oh, yeah. That's so funny.
Yeah. I was trying to do.
Do you know that? That hyenas. This is really weird, but the hyenas, when they're about to mate, they get scared into that. Like it's like, yeah, they get scared to into arousal and into into the mating ritual, right? It's so weird. It's so weird.
There you go.
Yeah. So
now I know that.
you may not have wanted to know that. You may it's
Right.
like, what am I going to do with that? But it's evolution is really weird, right? Like,
That's funny.
how did that evolve? But that was great, Adam. I like that.
So that's really interesting because I didn't intend for it to be funny, but it came out as funny. I think.
Well, Kate's response is a little bit. It's so wound up in, because this is part of her too. So she just loves how you're developing this, right? So yeah, that's pretty cool.
I love that imagery because so I have been talking to people creating metaverses and VR worlds, and I'm so excited about it. It's so my jam, and I just picture like this happening in VR worlds and living in this sort of like alternate virtual reality is so exciting for me. And the fact that if you had the proper fiscal authority, you could kick down the door and like enter into somebody's VR world. that tickles my funny bone. I laughed. I want to keep reading. I want to turn that page to Dan's point. Turn that into page.
Yeah.
Interesting. Good. Cool. I'll take it.
Nicely done.
Yay! Yes, good, Adam.
Honestly, I got stuck in that part for a long time because there was like a lot of things happening and I couldn't decide. I couldn't get it all to like flow nicely, but I think it came out okay in the end. So,
I like how you developed that backstory in a fast-paced sort of like unfolding. There's an unfolding, a fast-paced unfolding, but it filled in backstory at the same time. That was pretty cool.
Love it. Great work, Adam.
There's definitely momentum to this, right? I'm excited to get in there.
So, Kate, I want to challenge you on something.
Here we go. I'm challenged enough, isn't it?
I want to give you the sense, because there's sense that we rely on when we're describing things, right? And a lot of times it has to do with sight, right? What I want you to do is and whether or not it makes the cut in the novel or not, I want you to start exploring about what some of the smells are.
Okay.
Right? It's a part of our sense that is not quite like, is it stale air? Is it fresh air? How does it, like, what are those smells in the space, right? Because they can evoke emotion really quickly, right?
Yeah.
So, and I'm not saying what to do with it, that I'm pulling something. Yeah.
So this is interesting because this is something I wanted to talk about. So I was chatting with somebody the other day and they were like, oh, I have synesthesia. And I was like, oh my God, so do I. And they're like, no way. And I haven't figured out, I've only known for about, I don't know, Adam, I think it was with you that I discovered it like 4 years ago, maybe. I don't know. And I said something crazy, which I didn't realize was crazy until I said it, is that Wednesday is blue. And everybody looked at me like I was crazy. And that's when I realized I see things differently than people. So this, like experiencing the senses, and could you imagine if somebody developed the VR world who had this? It would look so much different than somebody who would be in the VR world who didn't have it. So what are those senses and how do we interpret them is so important. I think that what if we actually in the VR world manufactured scents, like smells? What if that was part of the experience? Like you didn't actually have to put it out into the air, but you're plugged in. What if you triggered it on purpose?
That's right.
How would somebody live their life if, like, you say, okay, I'm checking emails. Well, every time you check emails, it smells like dirt rubber. Like, what if that's the way it feels, right?
Or a poopy diaper.
Right? But like, what is the smell? When we went into that cafe, and I never really realized that when I read before, and we were in the cafe with Eric's before Quinn got promoted to a partner, we didn't talk about the smell. But it's a cafe, so it should smell like roasted beans and rich leather and like there. But it's what the person perceived those smells to be like, right? Who designed the VR world? Who designed that cafe? So I think that's super interesting.
One of the things I thought would be cool is because we all have our our own balance of the senses, and that could be our own innate, like actual physical sense of smell or hearing or whatever, and also our brain paying attention to that. Right? You go to a hearing test; they test not only can you hear it, but is your brain like listening for it. Right? So, for example, if you entered the VR world like this, where you were really tapped in, then based on that, your experience be unique for everyone. Some people's highly visual, others people maybe smelling, hearing, seeing sound, whatever. Like would everyone's experience be totally different, right? It's like me trying to explain to you what yellow is, But if I got to see through your eyes one day, I might say that's blue, right? Your reality looks way different than me.
Yeah.
Who knows, right?
I've even thought of it, and I'm going to make a point, and I'm going to let you guys both respond because we're right up at the top of the hour. Okay, so I also think that there's a natural. I'm just total speculation and conjecture here. So you have a dichotomy between personality types that are creative and more factual based or concrete. Okay, and I think that there's individuals that rely more on certain senses than others. And we're not talking about a huge spectrum, but even that slight variation in physical senses and how we process them, as Kate has pointed out, is I think that's the wellspring from where part of our novelty emerges from, right? Part of how one individual differs from another one. So what is your, very quickly, do you think that there's some directions that you can take this to differentiate characters? Kate's already talked about maybe developing and building on that. Just in a couple sentences, because, we're going to wrap it up. That'll be it. So why don't we talk a little bit about that before we wrap the show up this week?
I think that would be super cool if you had scenes from different points of view from other characters. So if you write a scene from point of view of this character that's highly visual, your language is talking about what they see. If this character is highly audible, then you're
tactile, for example, right?
Yeah, whatever. So you could describe from their point of view using different of the five senses very specifically, and it would be very obvious to the reader who's kind of engaging. I think that might be fun.
So if it was like a holodeck kind of thing,
like a whole new level. Like what if I'm in my VR world and I add a filter? What if I right? Like look at the filters we have right now on social media. No one knows what each other looks like, right? When you turn it off, you're like, ah. But like, what if somebody had a filter on the whole time and then and they forget that the filter's really there because they're experiencing it through this filter?
Right.
Like one thing I kind of explore the characters, like when they dial in, they're kind of a sucker for extreme sports or whatever. So when you dial in, it feels like when he plugs in, it feels like he's following. And like every time something comes in, it's like super intense and like, so he's like got it that way because that's how he likes it.
Right.
Other people might like a little calmer on the beach as well.
Exactly.
Adrenaline junkie. Give me the extreme sports version. That's what I want.
So let me ask you, if we're on the same page, I got excited about something and I'm thinking more about like that Star Trek holodeck sort of scenario, right? Could it be that there's an identical program and one character runs through it and another character runs through it? It's the exact sequence of events, but very much different experiences. Is that kind of where you guys are going with this? Or were you thinking about that? Like being able to like simultaneously write two different, but it's the exact same experience. It's not the exact same experience, but it's the same program.
Mm-hmm.
But then what the character is actually narrating or how they're experiencing it is just vastly different between the two. That would be very interesting to me.
That would be interesting.
That might be a fun just challenge to do, right?
Yeah.
Let's say, we come up with a scene, right? You're racing through a forest. You're trying to get to the top of a hill and grab the flag or whatever, right? I could write it from the point of view of like vision. Kaylin can pick a different sense or combination thereof, and we can compare. It might be a fun.
That would be really cool. Yeah.
Oh, cool.
On that, guys, we're at the we're at the top of the hour. We did it. We did another episode. Until next episode, which is in 2 weeks.
So
Stay happy, healthy, and we'll see you
Thanks
guys in
for
a
all the
couple
fish.
weeks.
yeah, so
See you
long.
guys.
Thanks for all the fish. Love it.